Hey everyone, have you ever been driving along listening to your favorite radio station and then all of a sudden it just turns into a wall of static? What is actually happening right then? And what incredibly clever trick do broadcasters use to fix it? Let's get into it. All right, so this explainer comes from part 16 of a really comprehensive 40-part series on modern broadcast transmission. Today we're zoning in on one of the smartest tools in a broadcast engineer's kit for a problem that is super common. You know that feeling, right? You dip into a valley, or maybe you drive behind a bunch of massive skyscrapers, and your perfectly clear FM signal just vanishes. So let's break down exactly why that happens. What you're experiencing is something called a signal shadow, and believe me, it is a fundamental challenge for anyone trying to broadcast a radio signal. The reason is really just simple physics. FM radio waves, they travel in a straight line, kind of like the beam from a flashlight. So anything that gets in the way, and I mean anything, a mountain, a cluster of tall buildings, or even just the natural curve of the Earth, can physically block that signal. It creates a dead zone, a shadow, where you just can't get any reception. Okay, so if you can't just bend the signal around the obstacle, what are you going to do? Well, you build a relay. And broadcasters have a very specific piece of tech designed to solve this exact problem. It's called a translator. And honestly, the best way to think of it is like a Wi-Fi range extender, but for radio. It's a small, low-power station that picks up the main station's signal and then rebroadcasts it on a totally different frequency, specifically to fill in one of those signal shadows. So here's how it actually works. First, a receiving antenna at the translator site grabs the main station's signal. Simple enough. Second, the gear inside converts that signal to a new, open frequency. Third, it retransmits it, but at really low power. We're talking 250 watts or less, just enough to cover that targeted dead zone. And finally, that new signal fills the shadow. And just like that, your radio reception is back. Pretty cool, right? Now, as you can probably guess, you can't just start popping up new radio signals all over the place. Translators are a fantastic solution, but they come with a very, very strict set of rules, all governed by the FCC. And this right here is the absolute core of the challenge. Translators are officially designated as a secondary service. What that means is their right to be on the air is conditional. They're basically guests in the radio spectrum. And the big, full-power licensed stations, they're the hosts. And that leads to the single most critical rule in the entire translator world. They must never cause interference for primary stations. Their first job above all else is to do no harm. This has some major implications. Not only can a translator not cause interference, but it also can't claim any protection from interference. So if a new full-power station wants to sign on, or an existing one wants to upgrade in a way that messes with the translator, well, the translator is the one that has to move or shut down. This makes finding a clear, stable frequency an absolutely massive and ongoing engineering challenge. So given all those challenges, how does a translator actually get built? Let's take a look at the process of going from just a plan on a map to a real signal in the air. It is definitely a multi-step process. First, you have to find the perfect site, one that can clearly receive the main station signal and be able to broadcast into the target shadow area. Then comes that critical frequency coordination to prove you won't cause any problems. After that, it's filing with the FCC, installing the antennas and all the hardware, and then finally conducting a ton of tests to get the final license to operate. But what happens if your perfect translator site can't actually get a clean signal from the main station? Well, engineers have a workaround for that too. Translators can be fed their audio directly by satellite, a dedicated internet stream, or another kind of radio link. This completely bypasses the whole need for over-the-air reception. So with all this tech and all these regulations, where does it all actually make a difference? Let's look at how these systems bridge the coverage divide out there in the real world. This is the classic use case. For communities that are tucked away in mountain valleys, a translator isn't some luxury. It's a lifeline. It is often the only way they can get clear FM signals, connecting them to vital local news, emergency weather alerts, and just a shared sense of community. But hey, it's not just for remote areas. In dense cities, those urban canyons created by skyscrapers can block signals just as effectively as a mountain can. Translators fill these hyperlocal gaps, providing service inside tunnels and making sure diverse inner-city communities can get programming that's tailored to them, which might otherwise get lost in the noise. And out in the countryside, translators are used to extend a station's economic and cultural reach. They can bring a city station's programming to small rural towns way beyond the main signal, creating a larger listening area that connects more people and supports local businesses that really rely on that broader advertising audience. And this all brings us to a final thought. In an age of endless streaming options, what is the future role for these kinds of hyper-local broadcast solutions that make sure everyone, everywhere, can tune in? It's a fascinating question about the future of what is a surprisingly resilient technology. Thanks for watching.